Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. So today, I wanted to keep our playlist and our series for the tier lists based on power rankings from the books going as we look at the Maiar of Middle-earth, the lesser of the Ainur who still came to Middle-earth and more or less served the Valar. If you missed our tier list for the Valar and how I would rank them based on their power from the books as well, you can find that in the description and cards. Same with our Lord of the Rings character tier list. Honestly, our whole playlist for the tier list rankings. That'll all be down there, so please check those out. These are fun ones to do because, honestly, it's kind of just taking looks at these characters, doing a quick summary of their lore, their story, and then where I would put them based on their power and just ranking them against each other. Now, again, as I like to mention with whenever we do power rankings, in Middle-earth, power is very complicated. Magic is complicated, whatever we want to look at. For how I'm using power in regards to this tier list and my other ones as well, is something that I like to consider to be actualized power. So it's things that they actually did in the books. It's them, wielding a giant sword and attacking somebody, whatever we want to say with that. And then it's also potential power. It's what is their spirit capable of? What is their willpower capable of? For instance, in my tier list for The Lord of the Rings, got a lot of flack for putting Frodo above Legolas or Gimli. Of course, Legolas or Gimli could destroy Frodo in a fight, but that's not just what I'm talking about here. With the Valar and the Maiar especially, a lot of their power is innate, internal. It has to do with their willpower or what kind of elements they might be able to control. And I think there's a good argument for Frodo, let's say, for his willpower to be greater because he bore the ring and he had some power over fate and doom. That translates into power in my mind as well. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump right in here and start with our Maiar of Middle-earth. So once again, the Maiar were lesser of the Ainur, those that went to Middle-earth with the Valar, but they weren't quite gods, right? We know them more or less as the wizards, Sauron, the Balrogs, and so forth. So starting here with Eonwe. Eonwe was one of the chieftains, along with Ilmare, one of the chieftains of the Maiar. And Eonwe was the herald of Manwë, right? So he was even trusted by the Lord of the Valar himself, by the Elder King. We're starting with quite a powerful one, honestly. But I'm going to definitely put Eonwe in S tier. I believe if he fought Sauron, he would beat Sauron. He was considered to be the greatest in terms of weapons, right? Like, Tulkas was a greater fighter as a Vala, but Eonwe was better with weapons than maybe anyone else in Middle-earth. So give him a halberd, an axe, a mace, whatever it is, he could probably dominate the battlefield, and he's very versatile with that. We even know that in his lore, Sauron kneeled before him and begged for forgiveness, and then Eonwe said that he couldn't judge that forgiveness after the War of Wrath at the end of the First Age, that Sauron would need to return to the west and face judgment there. Of course, Sauron never did that, and fled into the east and became the Dark Lord of the Second and Third Ages. But Eonwe is definitely S tier. Now, Ilmare, again, another chieftain of the Maiar. She was the handmaiden to the Queen Varda, and there's not as much story or lore here, but to help me out, just in case if I'm forgetting anything, I do have Tolkien Gateway ready to go on another monitor, so shout out to Tolkien Gateway. But she was barely mentioned in the Valaquenta, right alongside Eonwe. Again, she's somebody that doesn't have a lot of story, so it's hard to place her exactly. But if we can kind of tie her to Varda, and we know Varda is powerful, we know that she probably has some affinity for the stars and so forth. She has some early lore that was changed in the Book of Lost Tales. There was this original idea, kind of as a side note here, there was this idea that the Valar could have kids. Tolkien did away with that idea, but it was in some of his early lore. She was originally going to be the daughter, she had a different name, but she was going to be the daughter of Manwë and Varda, and that kind of all changed, of course. But I would say just based on that, based on where Eonwe is, So I want to put her S tier because, right, she's kind of Eonway's equal with that, but we just don't know enough lore about her. And I know, like, Eonway fought in the War of Wrath, but Elmare maybe did. We just don't know enough. She's definitely strong. There's a good argument to make her S tier, but I'll put her in A tier for now. Melian the Maya. So Melian, we know her from the Silmarillion. She plays an incredible role in it, marrying Thingol. Her daughter is Luthien, and she actually is so strong that she's able to put something called this girdle of Melian all around her forest kingdom in Doriath. I guess Thingol's forest kingdom as well. And this prevents evil creatures or supposed to prevent mortals. Unless their fate or their story is more or less greater than the power of the barrier itself. Baron, for instance, his doom, his fate was greater in power than her wall or of protection more or less was. Same with Carcharoth, the wolf that had the Silmaril in his stomach. He was able to pass through those boundaries because of his power with the Silmaril and how he impacted doom. Right? It's more or less like a writing way to say, oh, okay, well, if their story needs to take place here, if they're important enough to the story, they can get through this girdle. But it kept all these orcs out. It kept like dragons and stuff out of Doriath and out of Menegroth. And so with that, I mean, we're starting with some powerful folks here. Hard not to say that it's hard to say that she's not S tier. So I'd probably put her there. Still lesser in power than Eonway, but I would still put her up there. You know, this list might change as we go. It's kind of what happened with my Valar list, but we'll keep going for now. Mairon, a.k.a. Sauron. Now, Sauron himself, the ring, like, with or without the ring, he was still the one who made the ring. So again, I would add that to his potential power. From the first age through the second and the third age, obviously he goes through some changes, right? And spiritually, physically, all of that kind of stuff. But if we take him at his most powerful point, his greatest potential, and even actualized power, which is probably when he's like forging the One Ring, he is insanely powerful. And just one Maya who changed the course of all of history and fate and all of that stuff, I'd put him up here. Definitely, I would say stronger than Melian the Maya. Not quite as strong as Eonway, I don't believe. All right. Kurumo. So this is Saruman. I'm already looking at Melian, like maybe I put her too high, but we'll come back to Melian when I get some more people up here. Kurumo, Saruman. Now, he was the strongest, right, the greatest of the wizards, at least until Gandalf became Gandalf the White, and was able to unleash more of his power. So already he's definitely at least A tier. He has the power of his voice. He has the power of knowledge. He served Aule the Smith, right? So he had some abilities with crafting and knowledge and things like that. Now he's definitely, obviously not on the same level as Sauron. He never forged a One Ring himself, though he was trying to. He never got to that place where he was as much of a threat to Middle-earth and its people as Sauron was. So, again, how he compares to Elmare, she's probably stronger than he is because she stays with the Valar and he went to Middle-earth. But Kurumo, yeah, I'd put him there. Now, our boy, Aloran, Gandalf. We all love Gandalf, but we know that he's not as strong as Saruman. Again, at least until he becomes Gandalf the White. However, I think and I might get a lot of flack for this in the comments, right? Maybe deservingly so. But part of the thing with Gandalf is that he has strength in different means. He inspires people versus conquers them. He gives them wisdom and advice, and he just presents courage. Now that, obviously, right, is as strong as any other kind of magic in Middle-earth, if not stronger in some ways, because he could move factions, he could move entire kingdoms to do things. Saruman never could, even through tyranny. Saruman could never do that, right? And so if we want to consider that as power that's worth debating on this list, then he would have to be up here, obviously, next to Saruman. I think he's really between B and A, and again, I might get a lot of crap for this in the comments, just because we see that he's not as powerful as Saruman. He is more afraid of Sauron, which was, yes, more reason to go to Middle-earth, but that fear at times might have held him back. Again, we just get this feeling from whenever we talk about the Council of the Valar that was held before they sent the wizards. We get this feeling that Gandalf just isn't quite as strong as Saruman is. Love Gandalf. He's probably my favorite one on this list in terms of character, right? But I think he's probably the top of B tier, to be entirely honest. Iwendil, or Radagast. So now he was honestly kind of a shapeshifter, right? We get this insinuation in the lore that he's a master of hues and colors and forms, that he might have even had some ability like the Bjornings. Maybe, since they lived in the same area, maybe he even influenced their ability to become bears. But we have this idea that he's a bit of a shapeshifter to some degree and has all of these different animal companions, things like that, friends of the wild, or from the wild. But we know that, honestly, he doesn't do as much as Gandalf. Actualized and potential, in my mind, he is just less than Gandalf, and we see that with their rankings, right? With the White being, Sauron the White is the head of the Order of Wizards and the Astari, and then Gray, and then Brown. Just if we're looking at the rankings themselves, as they were sent as wizards, then if Gandalf is less in power than Saruman, Iwendil has to be less in power than Gandalf. So, Radagast does. Which brings us to Alatar and Palando, the two wizards, the two blue wizards who showed up and then just immediately left to the east and were never seen again. Plenty of videos out there, mine, many others, right? Friends of the channel. We all have explored ad nauseum the blue wizards, their lore, their mystery, all of that good stuff. But again, right, even though they did travel with Saruman for a time in the east, we do know that they are lesser in power than, again, there's that ranking. And I think that might be worth exploring in its own video too, but I think that they were even meant to be less powerful than Radagast, or maybe on the same level as Radagast there. I wouldn't put them nearly on the same level as Gandalf, of course, the Gandalf that we see. Honestly, if somebody has to be D tier on this list in terms of power, we just don't know enough about what they did and what they were capable of to really place them higher. Now, I will mention that all the wizards did serve different people, right? So, of course, again, Kurumo, Saruman, he served Aule. Alorin, Gandalf, he served Nienna, he learned pity, right? He served Manwë and Varda. He just served these great Valar. And then Radagast, he served Yavanna, which would make sense with his affinity for nature. And the blue wizards, let me look once more, shout out to Tolkien Gateway, but Rome is who they sent. Yeah, at least Alatar sent, or at least Alatar served Rome, and then Alatar brought Palando, the other blue wizard, along. But it seems like they served, more or less served the Vala of the Hunt, so Rome. Originally, Palando was affiliated with Mandos and Nienna, but this was changed to Arome, according to this Tolkien Gateway article. So, I would even say the Valar that they serve kind of changes. Kurumo, again, it's funny that Saruman's on top, because Aule is not as strong as Varda or Manwë. But, I mean, check that video out with the Valar tier rankings, because there was some controversy there. You could kind of see where I struggled, because Aule shaped the earth and all of that stuff. But if you put him up against both Varda and Manwë, Varda and Manwë are the king and queen of the Valar, so those would be Gandalf's. But again, he also served Nienna. So there's a whole hierarchy here. We don't have to get too much more into it, but a whole complex hierarchy of who they served and why that would be important to their power ranking here. But there you go. All right, Tilion. He is the Maya that carried the moon on his ship. And beyond that, we don't know a ton about him, other than his journey chasing the sun, trying to meet up with Arion, who's carrying the sun. He was a hunter. He originally was a hunter in the company of Rome. And, so he was given care of the moon. And he was able to vanquish... Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was able to vanquish spirits of shadow that Morgoth sent. I always forget about that part. Morgoth, when he noticed that the moon and the sun were rising, he sent these evil spirits to go fight the moon at least, and Tilion was able to destroy them. So based on that, I mean, he's at least C tier. He's at least C tier, I would say. That's probably where I'll put him for now. Again, we'll see if something changes here. I'll do kind of a recap at the end, just to check if anything moved. All right, Arianne, the Maya who held the sun. So she was a spirit of fire who Melkor failed to corrupt. She carried the sun on a vessel that Aule crafted, and Tilion loved her, went after her. We'd probably just have to say they're on the same level. But in Tolkien's work as motifs, the sun is just greater than the moon. It just is, right? It's more powerful than the moon. They both are powerful in their own way and everything, but it seems like the sun inspires more, right? Obviously, it grows the earth. That really... Morgoth hated the sun. He didn't like the moon, but he hated the sun. He sent out clouds of ash and smoke from Thangorodrim to just block out the sun. So, I would say Arianne's probably a little bit more powerful than Tilion. So, yeah, there you go. All right, Osei. Now, Osei's an interesting one, and again, it's funny that I put the sun, literal sun and moon, or at least the ones that carried them, into C tier, but Osei, he's a Maya of, sea storms, and we just know that those, especially with all of our seafaring adventures and all of that, Osei at least has to, in my mind, go into B tier. Now, he was almost corrupted by Morgoth. Morgoth really wanted him, had him for a second, right, but then he repented and was forgiven by Ulmo, the Vala of the Seas. But Osei would destroy things with his storms, and did at multiple times in the canon. Again, Arianne and Tilion, yes, they're carrying the sun and the moon, but I don't really know, other than just dropping the sun and the moon out of the sky, right, onto Middle-earth, which would be horrible. That'd be catastrophic, of course. Other than that, I don't really know comparatively their power levels, but I would probably still say Osei just has that stronger, right? He causes the storms. He is the storm. So I'd put him not quite maybe as high as Gandalf, but he's certainly up there. Now, Uinen, she was almost, her and I believe Osei were husband and wife. And she was loved by mariners because she kind of kept the surface of the water calm. She was the lady of the sea, and she was loved, by the Númenóreans, by the Teleri elves, who became the Falmari at Alqualande. And, I would say she doesn't cause as much destruction, nor do I know if she's capable. So I'd probably put her at the bottom of C tier. Yeah. Now, Salmar... Even before we started this video, I had to look him up again because I remember him a little bit, but really all he's known for, other than in the old versions of the canon that aren't really canon anymore, again, the Book of Lost Tales, all he does was he made great horns of Ulmo that produced the music of the sea. Cool, but kind of strange. Again, he did a little bit more in the notes. There's not too much to Salmar, so he'll probably be at the bottom of D tier. I would even say we know more about the Blue Wizards than Salmar. And, he doesn't do a ton. Okay, so this is looking like a pretty even list. Much more even than I thought it was going to be. So that's good. Durin's Bane. Now, Durin's Bane obviously destroyed many of the dwarves, took Khazad-dûm for himself, made it Moria. Would have been an absolute... horrendous travesty to set upon the world if he had gotten out of Moria, burned down Lothlorien, right? Who knows? Gandalf stepped in. It took all of Gandalf's power to stop him. So at least they're on the same tier. At the very least, they're on the same tier. And honestly, I couldn't argue for Durin's Bane to be higher than this. Honestly, if anything, I'd probably say he's a little lower than Gandalf because Gandalf killed him before he succumbed to his wounds. And he came back as Gandalf the White, which was just more powerful than the version of Gandalf that killed Durin's Bane. Right, so Gandalf got stronger than this, and we're still including that for Gandalf, and Durin's Bane died to the weaker version of Gandalf. So we'll definitely put him below Aloran. around Osei's level, I would say. Man, Gandalf really is, like, the edge of A and B. He really is. So, Gothmog. Alright. Gothmog, who is the last one on this list, he is the commander of the Balrogs, the strongest among them. He was the commander of Morgoth's forces in the First Age. So easily, right, if we're saying he's stronger than any Balrog, probably, stronger than Gandalf, I'm sure. Now, here's the tough part. Is he stronger than Saruman? Probably. Elmare? Maybe. She's so tough because I could see her, again, being all the way up here with Eonwe, or I could see her being in A tier. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think I can make the justification that Gothmog is any higher than A tier, though. Right? I'll put him right here next to Elmare because I'm not exactly sure how strong she is, if she's S or A tier. But he's probably less than she is. And, yeah, because he was killed by an elf, right? He was killed by Ecthelion of the Fountain. And, yeah, that is our whole tier list. I don't believe there are any Maiar missing other than just your regular Balrogs and so forth. Again, they'd probably be between A and B tier. So that is our tier list. And thanks to Aaron, who created this tier list. It will be in the template will be in the description. Let me know in the comments, would you change this list? What would your argument be? Do you agree with my rankings? Why or why not? Let me know all of that in the comments below. Always an interesting read. And I already know there's going to be one or two of these that, like, 2 days from now, I'm going to be like, maybe I would have changed that based on what the comments say. There's no perfect ranking here, but we're trying our best, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change Melian at the end of the day. Elmare, again, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, this is it. I think that's a really pretty even split, if you ask me. I mean, if you'd like to see more of these tier lists, let me know in the comments below. Would you like me to rank weapons, places? Do you want more power rankings, or do you want other kinds of rankings? Let me know all that in the comments as well. If you'd like to support the channel, the best thing you can do is join our memberships or our Patreon for access to our Discord server and our monthly podcast. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members who keep all of this going: Ed Patterson, Comic Nut 64, Brian Hunley, Peter Sheppard, John Hume, Rhys Jenkins, Arthur, Merlin, Theodore, Zoomi, Todesmorgen, and Joby Weasel. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to Join the Men of the West, and I'll see you all again next time. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.